We would like to thank the sponsor of today's event, the company Cincarna Celje DD, which presents itself to you through a wide segment of products. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are delighted to be able to welcome you at our annual 19th Environmental Conference, which this year, as you could notice, is also the first international e-conference in the Zoom platform, which is one of the online platforms that, frankly, most of us have already been pretty used to now in the last couple of weeks or months. I promise we will not be mentioning the C or K word at this event, but still, this is the new reality, so we have our event online. The organization of this year's conference has been made possible by the support of the main sponsor, Cincarna Celje, and Enterprise Europe Network. And also, I have to stress, a dedicated team of professionals at the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Slovenia, which have been working diligently in the last several days and weeks to get this conference together. Most of which are somewhere around us. I mean, you will not see them because it's an online event, so you don't see them like you would if we would be in a hall, but they are somewhere here. The same as all our speakers. So they're already here around us on the stage. You will see them when we will turn on their videos. So what's the date today? Okay, so the date is June the 5th, which is the United Nations World Environmental Day. Is it a coincidence? Obviously not, because the main theme of today is pollution caused by single-use plastic items. And the roles of both, on one side, the consumers and household, and the business community in tackling these issues in terms of measures and responsibilities to reduce and prevent this. There are also upside benefits of this being an e-conference, so in an online form, because we could get actually a lot of really interesting, knowledgeable experts from all over Europe. We have 9 experts sharing stuff with you today. And we have right now, if I can see, around 100 participants also. And speakers and participants, they didn't have to fly here or drive here and park and so on. So this is the upside. Yeah? There's also another upside. We don't have any single-use plastic at this event. So we have our own glasses and our own coffee cups with us, wherever you are. So in the offices or at home. So while we have the experts who have a lot to say, a lot of interesting and important things in their presentations, as you would see, we will also try to keep it pretty interactive. Yeah. So we have 2 Q&A sessions and also a quiz. So we're going to interact with you also with all the attendees. So if you have any questions, and there probably will be some questions from you, the audience, while the speakers will be sharing their thoughts and their presentations, please keep them for the end of the first part and then end of the second part where we have these Q&A sessions. The way we will interact with you is you will type it in the chat. So those of you who maybe are not so familiar with the Zoom, down on the bottom you have the toolbar and there's a chat button and you type chat. And then when we will have a Q&A session, you can type the question there. We also have the ability to give you the voice. So even if now you're just an attendee, listening to me, looking at the slides and the presenters, you will be able to also ask the question live if you would choose to do so. So we're going to have this interaction at the end of the first part, which is a little bit before 11, and then at the end of the second part, a little bit before 1 o'clock when we break for lunch. With that, I will finish the introduction, and I will kindly invite our first introductory speakers of today's conference. First up is General Manager of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Slovenia, Mrs. Sonja Šmuc, and next to her is Minister for Environment and Spatial Planning of the Republic of Slovenia, Mr. Andrej Vizjak. You're kindly invited to share your thoughts on today's topic.
Well, thank you, Matej, for this opportunity. A warm welcome to all our registered participants, to our speakers, and a special warm welcome to the Minister who is here kindly with us today. Today is the World Environmental Day, and this day is celebrated every June 5th as the United Nations principal vehicle for encouraging awareness and action for the protection of our environment. First held in 1974, it has been a flagship campaign for raising awareness on emerging environmental issues, becoming a global platform for public outreach with participation from over 140 countries annually. While more and more days and initiatives are being dedicated to the increasing number of global issues on environment, our Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Slovenia, where I come from, has adopted June the 5th as our flagship day to raise awareness on environmental trends and issues relevant for business, and has organized environmentally themed conferences for the business community on World Environment Day for the last 19 years. In the aftermath of the COVID-19 crisis, this year's event is special and very different from previous ones. While in previous years the event has always provided an opportunity for networking, this year it's marked by social distancing and has been transferred from our conference halls to this digital platform. But this also enabled us to engage international speakers who are top-notch experts in their field, and we're very happy that they are today with us. We expect today to have over or just under 200 registered participants. Matej told us that at this point around 100 are listening to this, so again, we're welcome to you and all of those who will join us later on. You come from 9 different countries, so we have an opportunity to highlight and discuss a truly global environmental, societal, and ultimately economic problem emphasized in plastic pollution. Marine litter is transboundary in nature and is recognized as a growing global problem. Reducing marine litter is key action for the achievement of UN Sustainability Development Goal 14, which calls to conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources. The title of the conference is Once Upon a Single-Use Plastics Time, which sounds a little bit like a fairy tale from previous times. Plastic is actually not the villain in this story. If anything, the corona crisis has proven plastic, especially single-use plastic, is indispensable in our current society for medical and health applications. As we discussed today, it is our attitude toward plastic which needs to change and become more respectful. Our current challenge, therefore, is being smart with plastics by designing for multiple and long-term use, by designing better collection as well as efficient and safe recycling and subsequent use of recycled materials at an economically sustainable rate. Before the crisis, we were already aware that waste infrastructure and recycling need to be updated and integrated with new technologies. Additional support must be provided for both R&D and innovation in these fields. The corona crisis has exposed economic and policy gaps for the transition towards plastic circularity. Due to plummeting global oil prices, recycled plastics are not economically feasible at the moment and cannot compete with the price and easier use of virgin materials. Does that mean that the plastic recycling market will die? Will it let it happen? Or will we find new solutions which we definitely need? Well, all of these challenges with possible solutions will be addressed in today's conference, in addition to challenges posed by the 2019 approved EU directive on single-use plastics, tackling single-use plastics items most frequently found on beaches, as well as lost and abandoned fishing gear, which must be implemented in member states by the beginning of July next year. So we have a lot of issues, and I'm very sure that also we will find some solutions and we will share them, not only among us, but also with our ministry. And we also call upon all of you participants from 8 other countries than Slovenia, that you do also the same, that the conclusions of these conferences you use and provide them to your ministries so that we can make a global change. Thank you very much.
So now we will give the word to share his thought with us to Minister for the Environmental and Spatial Planning of the Republic of Slovenia, Mr. Andrej Vizjak.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, this is a great opportunity and pleasure for me to address you on behalf of our ministry, which is responsible for environment and spatial planning. So as was said, that this year topic of the World Environment Day is biodiversity. However, today we shall redirect the topic to highly important subject, to use of plastics. At the beginning, some figures. The global production of plastics has increased 20-fold since 1960s, and it is expected to double over the next 20 years. Around 26 million tons of plastics waste is generated in Europe every year. Less than 30% of such waste is collected for recycling. Each year, 5 to 13 million tons of plastics is trapped in the oceans worldwide, which is 2 to 4% of world's plastics pollution. According to estimates, plastics counts for more than 80% of marine litter. In total, it is estimated that between 75,000 and 300,000 tons of microplastics is released into the environment each year in the European Union. The amount of plastics marine litter in the oceans and seas is growing and destroy ecosystems, biodiversity, and potentially human health, which causes widespread concern. Moreover, once littered, valuable material could be brought back into the economy is lost. The vision of Europe's new plastics economy is smart, innovative, and sustainable plastic industry, in which design and production fully consider reuse, repair, and recycling needs, bringing growth and jobs in Europe, contributing to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions in the European Union. The ministry will encourage companies to form alliances such as Circular Plastics Alliance. The initiative was launched as a part of European strategy. In December 2018, the European Commission launched the Circular Plastics Alliance to help boost the EU market to recycled plastics and to 10 million tons by 2025, which is objective for the Circular Plastics Alliance. The primary purpose of the ministry is for Slovenia to follow the strategic guidance of establishing the hierarchy of waste management as a basis of a circular economy, the inverted pyramid of waste management as a rule of every citizen. Effective waste management means compliance with the priority order of the waste management hierarchy. In our mandate, waste management will pursue the aim of the so-called inverted waste pyramid, which is also emphasized by the European Union in the main orientation of circular economy implementation. It follows 4 key principles. First, principle of prevention. The amount of waste should be limited at source. We refer to incentives for industry related to production and the consumers who should choose products and services that generate less waste. It also includes the development and implementation of a European waste recycling strategy. Second rule is the polluter pays principle. Whoever pollutes bears the costs of pollution. Third, precautionary principle. If there is a potential risk, try to avoid it. And fourth, proximity principle. Waste should be treated as close to its source as possible. Therefore, the larger area of pyramid covers the field of prevention, which includes consumers and industry. Each of us may decide to choose as a consumer or as a citizen, which product to buy. Environmentally friendly demand in itself will trigger a more environmentally friendly offer. The priority is to prevent waste generation, and the next step of the pyramid is waste processing for reuse or recycling. Only the remaining waste is intended for disposal or heat treatment. In waste prevention, in the last year, the Minister has focused mainly on reducing the consumption and use of plastic products and food waste. With the new Green Deal, focus will be placed on resource-intensive sectors such as textile or construction. Efforts will be made to provide a system which will ensure that the costs of waste management are the cost of polluters in accordance with EU regulation. The packaging waste management system is regulated by the principle of extended producer responsibility. On the years, World Environment Day has grown to be a broad global platform whereby individuals do something positive for the environment and contributes individual action into a collective power to generate an exponential positive impact on the planet. Environment Day should not only be reflected in one day of the year. Environmental care should be reflected in everyday's life. Let Environment Day be part of our day-to-day life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Vizjak. Thank you, Mrs. Šmuc, for your kind introductory words. And we are now starting with a series of presentations by our knowledgeable experts. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Obviously, plastic is the word of the day, and huge numbers around it, as it was just shared by Minister. And now to provide us with even more plastic view, maybe focused a little more on the Mediterranean area, where most of us hope to be traveling freely soon, is going to be shared with us by Dr. Thomais Vlachogianni. She's from Athens, from Greece. She works as a senior program policy officer at the Mediterranean Information Office for Environment, Culture, and Sustainable Development. She's an expert in environmental research and management of marine litter and marine plastic pollution in the, as I said, Mediterranean Sea region. She will provide an overview of key facts and figures related to this plastic pollution of single-use plastics, as well as highlights regarding the associated scientific certainties and uncertainties. So, Thomais?
So, Dobar dan, dobro jutro, good morning to everybody. Thank you very much for this wonderful invitation and opportunity to share with you my insights on the issue of marine litter. Also would like to thank the Honorable Minister, Mr. Vizjak, and the Honorable General Manager, Mrs. Šmuc, for their wonderful introductory words, and to welcome you all. As Matej nicely introduced me, I am a policy and program officer at the Mediterranean Information Office, and I've been working for quite some time on the issue of marine litter, for at least 10 years. And I will share with you here today some insights on the issue that hopefully will add on to this wonderful discussion that was nicely put on with regard to the topic of the conference, which is to be smart with plastics. I'm sorry, but I'm experiencing a small problem because I can't see my presentation.
Let us solve this quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So NA is our support guy in the back. So he will give you now the control. You should see the presentation. Okay, you're not sharing it. You're just controlling the presentation that we all see right now. Okay.
Yes.
So just click in the presentation and then next with buttons.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
that works.
So, as I said, I've been working for an environmental organization. It's a federation of environmental NGOs from all over the Mediterranean, and we are 130 organizations. And we have been working for quite an extensive period of time on different levels related to marine litter, from awareness raising to strengthening decision making, filling in the knowledge gaps. And this experience that we have accumulated on the topic is coming from our involvement in several large-scale marine litter projects, among which one of my favorite ones, of course, is the IPA Adriatic Refugee project that was led by the Institute of Chemistry of the Republic of Slovenia. And this is how I had also the great honor to meet a lot of great colleagues, which are very active on the issue, and I'm sure that they're going to make a huge contribution when it comes to addressing it in Slovenia. Marine litter is an indisputable global threat, and this is documented from a large number of research articles that have been published over the last 20 years. And you can see here in this graph the exponential increase of the research that has been performed on the topic. And apart from the scientific community that has been placing a lot of emphasis on the topic, this problem has also kind of growing momentum due to the high levels of concern of citizens all over Europe. And this has been documented by a survey that we had carried out within an FP7 project, research project, where actually it was interestingly highlighted that the citizens all over Europe attribute the issue of marine litter to the packaging design and the behavioral, let's say, approaches to a larger extent, and to a lesser extent to the lack of facilities or accidental loss of marine litter. So basically the citizens of Europe sort of highlighted the responsibility also of the industry sector in terms of tackling the problem. And of course, at European level, there have been a lot of organized efforts, and there has been a considerable investment of resources in terms of highlighting the knowledge gaps and addressing the knowledge gaps with regards to marine litter. And in fact, more than 200 projects have been implemented on the topic in the last, I would say, 5 to 8 years, half of which are dealing with monitoring and assessment aspects, because back in 2008, when the Marine Strategy Framework Directive was put in place, the knowledge on the extent of this threat was limited. But I'm happy to see that more and more the projects are dealing also with solutions and how to actually put them, set them up. And I believe that this will be the main emphasis in the years to come. Now, with regards to the appropriate management of the problem, of course, in order to be able to make informed decisions, we have to understand the certainties and uncertainties that pertain the management cycle of marine litter. So basically, from the detection of the problem to the understanding of the problem, the identification of possible solutions, the selection of appropriate solutions, and then eventually the operationalization of these solutions and actually going into action. So with regards to the origin, sources, and pathways, a lot has been sort of said about it. And very frequently we hear different figures being cited. But the reality is that, for example, in the Mediterranean, it's in general acknowledged that the land-based sources of marine litter are more important than the sea-based. However, it is very difficult to assess to which extent each of these different sources contribute, because the majority, almost half actually, of the litter items that are being recorded cannot be attributed to a certain source, because this means, for example, plastic bottles could be originating from different sources, either sea-based or land-based. So basically, half of the litter items that are being recorded cannot be attributed to a source. In addition, a lot of the results are obtained by beach litter surveys, which means that they are more reflective of the land-based pressures. This is one thing, but also the majority of the beach litter surveys are being performed in touristic destinations, and obviously they're reflecting the tourism pressure. However, if some beach litter surveys were performed in the vicinity, I don't know, of industrial establishments or in the vicinity of ports and harbors and fisheries destinations, the findings would be completely different. So basically, I would just like to stress here that we shouldn't underestimate the sea-based contribution of sea-based sources contribution to the issue of marine litter. And this is why marine litter requires also localized measures in order to address the different pressures. With regards to the origin and the transboundary effect, a lot has been talked, and very frequently we hear member states, for example, saying that they can't resolve the topic simply because the litter is originating from other neighboring countries, which could be the case in the vicinity of, let's say, the borderline. However, the different modeling approaches that are being used throughout the Mediterranean illustrate that the majority of litter items that are found in one country are mainly originating by the country itself. So basically, the member states need to take responsibility for the problem that they are generating themselves. And also another big issue are the riverine inputs. And this is in some cases where I see the larger, let's say, transboundary effect, in the sense that if you have a river that is being shared by many countries, but the outflow is just in one country, then inevitably upstream measures need to be undertaken that are beyond the jurisdiction of the member state where the outfall of the river is. So we understand here that a lot of different approaches, including integrated water resources management at transboundary level, are necessary in order to address the issue effectively. With regard to the composition, we are all aware that plastics are the main, let's say, percentage of the marine litter items found. And this is no surprise because the majority of the products that we are using in our daily lives are made of plastic. And actually, I'm really fond of the title that you have for the conference, Be Smart with Plastic, simply because there is a misconception out there that we can live without plastics. And this is completely unrealistic, at least for now. I don't know, maybe in the future some innovative materials might be invented, but for now we cannot live without plastics. And actually, the only thing we need is to learn how to use plastics wisely and responsibly. So indeed, a large amount of plastics are made of single-use items, and this is why we have now the directive in place that can deal with the issue effectively. And here I would like to highlight that, for example, in the Mediterranean, and in particular in the Adriatic, we found out through the Fish Care project that almost 40% of the litter items were originating from the fishery and aquaculture sector. And this is why exactly fisheries and aquaculture related items are part of the single-use plastics directive. With regards to the microplastics, at the time being, we don't have any reliable estimates of the quantities of microplastics that are entering the marine environment. And what we do know is that even if releases of plastic would stop today, the number of microplastics in the ocean would continue rising. So this highlights the urgency of the problem and the irreversibility of the problem in some ways. With regards to the impacts, I would like here to stress something that sometimes it's sort of considered as a given, the health impacts of marine litter for humans or even for marine species. This is still under research, still under investigation, and basically these are some points highlighted by the SAPER report. It's a European effort to shed light on the issue of microplastics and effects through a huge collaboration of well-known researchers on the topic. And basically, one of the main findings is, first of all, that there are uncertainties regarding the extent of harm caused to marine species by ingestion. There is no evidence to support or refute potential biomagnification of particles or associated chemicals. and also that basic toxicological data on the consumption of micro and nanoplastics by humans for food risk safety assessment are lacking. So basically, this is sort of gray area. We don't know yet, and still researchers are trying to shed light on these uncertainties with regard to the impact. But what we do know is that marine litter causes a lot of economic impacts. And actually, this was highlighted by the Fiskier project, and I will show you in my next slide some of the main findings as to the costs incurred by marine litter. With regards to the measures now, there are a lot of misconceptions out there that I would like to highlight, and I'm glad that the Single-Use Plastics Directive is also putting emphasis on this. For example, there is a lot of discussion about substituting conventional plastics with bio-based plastics as a solution to the problem of marine litter. And in fact, this has nothing to do with marine litter, because conventional plastics and bio-based plastics, in terms of their chemical, let's say, composition, they're the same. So once they're left into the marine environment, they will behave the same. So bio-based plastics have their added value, has nothing to do with the issue of marine litter, but it has to do with the sources, the materials, where they come from, and the use of renewable sources for the production of plastics. Another main issue is the issue of biodegradable and compostable plastics. Again, these plastics pollute our coasts and seas the same way as conventional plastics. And in some countries, for example, when they cannot be collected separately, they can also generate problems to the recycling of plastics, because they sort of contaminate the recycling stream. So every sort of solution has to be well thought and has to be sort of approached through a life cycle approach in order to understand to which extent it resolves or it creates a problem. And last but not least, the end-of-pipe solutions are not basically a solution, because even if we can clean up the coast, for example, in case there is a sort of a small extent of a coast, for example, for Greece, it would be completely unrealistic to say that we can clean up the coastline. Still, we cannot clean up the water column or the seafloor. So we can understand, and simply we cannot scoop out the microplastic. So we understand that cleanup operations, unless we're talking about hotspots, marine litter hotspots, are not a feasible or realistic solution. So basically, the framework, the main framework for addressing the topic of marine litter is the Marine Strategy Framework Directive and the descriptor explicitly addressing marine litter. And member states by now have put in place programs of measures and monitoring programs in order to try to achieve good environmental status and to see to which extent this has been achieved. And a technical group, which I'm a member of, is providing expert advice to the member states with regard to that. But happily, last year, or a couple of years ago, we saw the European plastic strategy being endorsed by the European member states and prioritizing the issue of plastics at European level, with the aim to make recycling more profitable for businesses, to curb plastic waste, not just for the marine environment, but also in general for the environment, to stop littering at sea, to drive investment and innovation, and inevitably inspire change across the world, because the European member states and the European Commission are pioneers when it comes to the topic of marine litter and plastic pollution. And at least from the NGO front, we were very happy to see, in a quite short time frame, the Single-Use Plastics Directive being adopted. That entails a lot of different measures that should be implemented at different levels, including the banning of specific items like straws and steer, for example, or single-use coffee-to-go cups, revised consumption reduction targets, obligations for producers, collection targets, labeling requirements, and other cutting-edge measures that hopefully will yield a desirable result. But apart from the European legislative framework, also In the Mediterranean, we have the Regional Action Plan for Marine Litter Management, which has been adopted by the contracting parties of the Barcelona Convention in 2013. It was the first United Nations action plan adopted in the European regional seas. After that, the Northeast Atlantic adopted a similar plan, and the Baltic Sea a similar plan. So we were sort of pioneers when it comes to that. And this plan entails also similar measures as the Single-Use Plastics Directive, but not just addressing plastics, but also other types of marine litter. So with regard to the plastic pollution in the Mediterranean coastline, I would like to share with you some of our most recent results from a participatory science initiative that we carried out in 23 locations in the Mediterranean. And this was recently published in a peer-reviewed journal. And this is the first study of its kind, which is actually demonstrating the percentage of single-use plastics found in the different Mediterranean locations. So you see, as you can see here in this graph, about 40% of the items were single-use plastics, and you can see that the majority of these were cigarette butts and filters, plastic cups and lids from drinks, cotton bud sticks, straws and stirrers, and crisp packets and sweet wrappers. And these actually findings can support targeted measures when it comes to addressing these items. And of course, you can see that these types of items differ in terms of locations, simply because they reflect, as I said earlier on, the different profiles of the beaches. And the most alarming thing is, from another project that we have been working on and focusing on marine protected areas, that these environments that should be close to pristine, if not pristine, are also dominated by the presence of plastics and single-use plastics, which in some cases, they reach the amount of 80 or 82% of the fraction of litter items found. As I promised before, here is a slide that illustrates the implications of marine litter in terms of costs for the different sectors. And I will not go in detail through it, but you can see some facts and figures that we came up within the Fish Gear project as to how much does marine litter cost in different businesses, like in fishing vessels, in ports and marinas, in touristic businesses. So as you can see, the figures are quite substantial. And even if we don't have the science to back up the sort of impacts on the health of humans, for example, we sure have the science to back up the impacts on the marine and coastal environment and the impacts on the businesses. So this illustrates there's no time to wait, and we have to undertake action now. And last but not least, I would like to put some emphasis on a recent initiative that we are working on, and this is the Plastic Busters project. This is a project that has been endorsed by the Union for the Mediterranean and the 43 countries of the Union for the Mediterranean, including Slovenia. And this addresses the whole life cycle of marine litter. The interesting part about this project is that it focuses on piloting measures of marine litter. And these measures are quite diverse, among which measures focusing on phasing out soups in beach bars, or developing a network of collection points for beverage containers, etc., etc. And I'm happy to be collaborating with the management the management body of Park Strunjan on actually implementing two measures: the soup-free beach bars and the Adopt a Beach scheme. And I understand that I have to close my presentation, and actually this is my last slide basically. So the key message that I would like to convey to the audience is basically that we have enough science to support our actions. We have enough momentum obtained by the different legislative frameworks, and I think that also the society at large is pointing to one direction, that we have to undertake action now. So with that, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I will be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Which you will. Thank you, Tommy. I mean, it clearly, we can see that this is really dear to your heart, this topic, and you could like really go on. But the thing is, we have 9 of you in a limited time, so we all agreed that in case you go a little bit over time, I will step on stage and so on. We do have some questions, although we will not take them now. As I said, you can feel free to type the questions in the chat, and then we will take them during the Q&A session, which is going to be at around 11. So thank you, Tommy. Thank you very much. And we're going to actually see you at 11 because we're going to see all the presenters from the first part at the Q&A session. As you could see, some of you in the chat, we had a troller, which is somebody who doesn't really know how to behave in a serious professional conference like this, so we had to put him out. And as I already said, we already have some questions, which is really good. And one of the questions was also from Uli, which is our next speaker. So we're really pleased to announce our next speaker, Dr. Ulrike-Gelbmann. She's from Graz, Austria, from Graz University, and she will introduce us to the social aspects of plastic pollution through the perception of consumers. Yeah? She's an expert in sustainability research with focus on sustainability management and waste prevention. What she will present is her recent research on how consumers perceive, manage, and choose among different alternatives of this single-use plastic packaging currently available on Austria's market. So this is going to be focused on Austria's and the perception of consumers. So Uli, stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Matej. Thank you for inviting me, for having me here, and hello to everyone on their screens at home. So this is me talking from the University of Graz in Styria in Austria. Actually, I'm not just only talking about our recent research, but rather on our experiences that we have, because we are also very much involved in raising consumer awareness. In fact, so this is our to society responsibility. And now I would like to have
you just need to click first in the presentation, and then you have the control. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that was too much then. Okay. So we are going to talk about consumers and legal demands on single-use plastics in Austria. And there were a lot of interesting questions risen in our pre-talks of this presentation. So the idea was on how do consumers perceive single-use plastics? How do they manage and choose among different alternatives? To which extent are they ready for new alternatives to single-use plastics, which would require an alteration in their behavior and their concrete acting? What is important to them? How do they aim to influence the plastic packaging development, and who can change the industry's single-use packaging demeanor? So these are very interesting questions. They are very complex, and I had the honor of being in a live discussion on the Austrian Ö1 radio, which is like a higher level of radio. And I was able to be in this discussion yesterday, which was quite similar actually as to the topic. And there were some interesting questions and answers, and maybe I can add this here in this presentation. Right, but what is the problem? The problem is the increasing population worldwide, and accordingly we have increasing amounts of waste. We have this increasing complexity also in the composition of waste. For example, the waste electrical and electronical equipment that we have. What we also have is that we have changing patterns of consumption, and consumption has now become an indicator for social status. So I can afford to throw away, you know, being like in a restaurant, I don't eat everything up, but I skip after having taken a few forks of or spoons of what I've ordered, so I can afford to throw away. So we are a throwaway society, and we have mass consumer goods, and this ends up in like 475 kilograms of waste per every EU citizen and year, which is quite a lot. So what is necessary is a kind of reframing the broader public's mindsets in the context of the SDGs. Maybe most of you will have heard about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They are in my presentation here to the right. And I marked the most important ones concerning waste management and also the single-use plastics. Here it's goal 12, responsible consumption and production, and also the goal 4, quality education, which means we have to reframe the customers' mindsets. Now, the question was, what does the consumer in Austria say? And there is actually no such thing as a one type of consumer in Austria, not in Austria and nowhere else either. What we can see here is the so-called sinus milieus, done by the actually German market research group of Sinus. And I did not translate everything in here, which would have been really tricky, but I think most of it can be read even if it's German, because it's similar in English. What the Sinus milieus do is they sort of make up what they call milieus, which is a group of people who are living and sharing their lifestyles in a similar way. From a lower middle class and medium middle class and upper middle class spectrum on the y-axis, and on the mindsets that they share on the x-axis, like rather a traditional one with duty and law and order aspects, while the B thing, individualization, self-actualization, and so on. And finally, the post-material or reorientation aspects like pragmatism, multi-optionality, refocusing, and so on. So, and according to that, the types of consumers in Austria are somehow shaped. And maybe you have also heard of the low-has segment, which are the people with a higher income, not from the lower class, and with a rather modernist or postmodernist spectrum of values and attitudes. And they are the basic spectrum that is addressed by all efforts to integrate sustainability performance into behavior. So actually the main efforts of supermarkets or all kinds of shops to address a sustainable consumer, they address this kind of people, which is marked with a red circle in here. So there are two actually challenges: addressing their needs and requirements, and also raising the attention and the awareness of those in the left down spectrum of this sinus milieus, so the traditional ones and the consumption-oriented bases, who are actually not caring about waste and the packaging waste they produce. So we have to somehow distinguish here. What I try to do is to give you examples on the downsides of waste and single-use packaging waste, single-use plastic waste, and on the other hand side, present some positive examples that we have to some extent researched, but also coached sometimes. And some of them, of course, are initiatives of their own. So we have a solid waste plastic volume here in Austria in 2018 of about 1 million tons. And no, sorry, not 1 million tons, 500,000 kilograms, so that's it, sorry. But the lightweight fraction, which I'm actually addressing here, the others are not interesting. The lightweight fraction that I have here is about 150,000 tons, which means that's the amount of plastic packaging, mostly single-use packaging, put onto the market. And the bigger part of that goes to thermal treatment, like 3/3 in Austria. We have 26% going to recycling and only 2% to landfill. The reason for that is that we have a landfill ordinance in operation that has a ban on landfilling organic material. On the other side, you can see the packaging balance of our most important packaging collection organization, that's ARA, Altstoffrecycling Austria. So that's remains collection in Austria. They do the collection of yellow bags, yellow bins containing this lightweight fraction. And we can see here that they have collected 245,000 tons of glass and 640,000 tons of paper. The reason for that very high amount is that we also have the waste paper amounts here from like newspapers and so on. 30,000 tons of metals and 177,000 tons of lightweight packaging. So this is a really big amount, and the lightweight packaging is the one that contains all the single-use plastics. So that's really not a positive thing. On the other hand side, we have several initiatives. One that we are not cooperating, but monitoring and accompanying quite closely is the Zero Waste Initiative in Grad-Weinstraße-Engel, a municipality north of Graz. They have very committed people there. In the picture you can see to the left Merle Weber, who is very, very committed to this project. Also one of their minutes of a discussion when you can say, well, zero waste includes refusing, reducing, reusing, recycling, and rotting, composting. And they have really a lot of initiatives designed to bring down the use of single-use packaging. For example, just tips on doing that, but they also have, and you can see that in the picture, this initiative on reusable shopping bags. So you have these cotton bags, and at least at my home, they get piled up. So you get cotton bags all over again, and they somehow end up being stored at home. And these initiatives says, well, bring your old cotton bags and we can resell them or give them back to consumers. And they also have a lot of workshops on things like making soap or reuse cooking or producing your hygiene products and your detergents yourself, which is also meant at bringing down the amount of waste, also the packaging waste. So this is one of the zero waste initiatives, and they are those who want to reduce these really huge amounts of packaging waste that we have here in Austria. Another problem that we have also had addressed before is the littering. Austria does not have any maritime borders, but littering is still quite a problem, mostly in the heavily populated areas. You can see here to the right top, there is Vienna, right below that there is Graz in the region, and then we have also Salzburg, farther to the west, and in the farthest west it's Vorarlberg, where there are also quite many inhabitants in a very small space. And this has been surveyed by a group of Pulswerk and Global 2000 in Austria, an environmental NGO. And they have monitored for several years with a mobile phone app locations where there has been littering. So people were asked to put a photograph onto a special website, onto an app, and this is the outcome of all littering that we have here in Austria. And it can be seen, I'm not sure if you can read it, it's rather small, that especially for the PET bottles, the left chart here below, there were more than 4% of the waste were made up of pieces of PET bottles, right? In the composition of everything, and this is just a small part. And the volume of that was nearly 12%. So it was collected and the volume was nearly 12%, which is really not only just disgusting and unhygienic, but it's also a problem for wildlife, as we heard before in the presentation. And again, this goes hand in hand with very short-lived consumer goods and also takeaway products. That's the thing that is littered the most. There is also a positive side to that. Littering or anti-littering is actually part of the Austrian waste prevention program. And in our federal state of Styria, where Graz belongs to, we have der große steirische Frühjahrsputz, which is the big Styrian spring cleanup, always taking place from March to May. Last year from March 25th to May 4th. Unfortunately, of course, in 2020, due to the corona crisis, this event had to be cancelled. But last year there were more than 55,000 participants in various actions and events organized by the, I don't know, voluntary fire brigades or also by schools and so on. And altogether they collected nearly 200,000 kilograms of waste. So actually this is a quite big thing, and we have these actions and obviously people do get involved, and this is a good part to act contrary to the other stuff. One of the big minuses is, and I think you will have that in Slovenia as well, that in supermarkets nearly everything is sold in a packed or wrapped way. So we have lots of fruit and vegetables, all packed up in plastics with a plastic cover. And we have all sorts of, in the middle photo, of cans and bottles, and most of them are made up of plastic. And finally, you can see a view of a supermarket, and you can see that nearly everything is in packages, in wraps, in plastic bottles, and so on. So this is a huge source of single-use plastics, and there are also initiatives acting contrary-wise, and you will have her presentation again, a former student and now colleague of ours, Sarah Reindl, together with another colleague, made up a packaging-free shop, or actually two meanwhile, das Gramm, so the gram, and decagram. Decagram means this is 100 grams. And in their shops, they sell products without packaging directly at the point of sale, and as little when they do their own purchasing. Sarah will explain on that later, so I don't delve into this. But the idea is to have less packaging material, and also people can buy the quantity they need, so they are not forced to buy a special quantity which might be either too small or too big, and if it's too small you have to take two, and then you have also some remains, and food waste will rise due to that fact. So the idea of one of these packaging-free shops is also to bring down the amount of packaging material. Okay, and then we have initiatives in supermarkets. Most of the Austrian bigger supermarkets, there are actually only 3 really big chains, try to offer more fruit and more vegetables free of packaging material. Of course, you can buy single-use bioplastic bags then, which are actually not better than anything that had been used before. But you can also buy, I just put some photo here in it, of some nets that you can buy and reuse. You can bring them, you can also bring your own bags and put them the food into there. We have also bread in this photo here. Can put it in here, and so you do not need the single-use packaging material. This is an initiative that was actually in the beginning driven by the supermarkets themselves, because the ban on plastic bags that we have in Austria since the beginning of 2020 did not say that they have to provide these multi-purpose, multi-use nets. So this is an initiative of the supermarkets themselves. Then there are some initiatives like the multi-use milk bottles that we have had in Austria only for 3 months now. So they were reintroduced in March 2020, and we do not follow this link here. It was a petition, a customer petition, and by the civil society to introduce that, and supermarkets and industry followed that and introduced this. And finally, we have a last initiative, and this is the one driven by the government and by the EU, that we have a ban on some kinds of single-use plastic products that will be started in July 2021. So there won't be any one-way plastic cups and so on. So they will be banned. Unfortunately, supermarkets have started to offer all kinds of replacement products made up from bamboo or wood and so on. So this will not lead to a change in behavior, just to a change in products. So that's actually all the stuff
Thank you, Uli. Thank you, because we're trying to be on time. So thank you for all this. Again, all of the speakers are really knowledgeable in their respective areas, so we could listen for them really long, and we will actually come back to them in the Q&A session. So Uli, thank you very much on these topics. And you already mentioned the gram and decagram, which is also what we're gonna hear in the next topics. So our next three speakers, they cooperate professionally. They will present us with a comprehensive view of possible practical strategies and measures to improve waste collection and recovery. So we have a set of shorter presentations, about 10 minutes, of three presenters who are cooperating together. First is Mrs. Tina Ajdic. She's a senior advisor at ADS Insight. She's a Slovenian working in Brussels, Belgium. She will provide us with an overview of the single-use plastic legislative framework. She helps public and private organizations understand the EU policies and legislation. She's a senior advisor at ADS Insight, responsible for coordinating the circular economy team. She was also nominated as one of the best EU consultants this year. So the floor is yours, Mrs. Ajdic.
Thank you very much, Matej, for this kind introduction. And thank you very much for having me at this very interesting and very timely webinar to help address the very important issue of plastics pollution. So as said, I'm Slovenian, but have been working in Brussels for the past 7 years now as advisor at ADS Insight. And ADS Insight is a consultancy. What we do is we connect change makers and EU decision makers. In practice, that means that we help businesses understand the legislation coming from the European Union, impacting them, and also help them access EU funding. So today I have the pleasure to give you an overview of the EU directive on single-use plastics, which was put forward by the European Commission in May 2018 and entered into force about a year later in July last year. It was adopted in record time. And the background for its adoption is really the marine litter issue and the growing public awareness about the problem of plastic pollution and the increased calls on the European Commission to do more to tackle this issue. So the directive was adopted, and what it does is it tackles 10 single-use plastic items that are most often found on Europe's beaches and seas, as well as lost fishing gear. It's considered to be the most ambitious piece of legislation worldwide tackling marine litter, and you will see why. Here are some of all the measures the directive sets. Very ambitious measures imposed on member states and the industry, from product bans for certain single-use plastic products to consumption reduction targets for cups and food containers, to wider extended producer responsibility requirements, whereby producers will have to cover also the costs of litter cleanup and awareness-raising measures. Also, very important new target for separate collection for beverage bottles, as well as mandatory recycled plastic content in bottles. Some other measures include also design and labeling requirements, as well as awareness-raising measures. So now here, if we look at which products will be banned from the summer next year, this includes cutlery, plates, straws and beverage stirrers, balloon sticks, cotton bud sticks, oxo-degradable plastics, and also food and beverage containers made of expanded polystyrene. I want to focus here also a bit more on beverage bottles, not only because they're one of the most littered items found on Europe's beaches, but also because the directive imposes some very strict and ambitious requirements on bottles. Firstly, there will be design requirements, whereby caps and lids will have to be attached to the container. Furthermore, there will be wider extended producer responsibility requirements, whereby producers will have to cover the cost of also litter cleanup and awareness raising. There are also awareness raising measures imposed on member states. And most importantly, the directive sets some very ambitious targets. Firstly, mandatory recycled contents, whereby PET bottles will have to include at least 25% of recycled content from 2025 and 30% for all bottles from 2030. Also, another very important issue is the separate collection targets of 77% to be reached by 2025 and 90% by 2029. And the directive also says that member states can achieve these high targets by introducing, among other means, deposit refund schemes. So you can see on this picture an example of such a scheme whereby a consumer, after consuming the drink, would bring the plastic bottle back to the machine, put it in the machine, and then get the deposit money back. So very easy. And we know that deposit refund schemes are very effective instruments in order to achieve high collection and high quality recycling, and also to reduce littering. Now, this has been proven in several countries that already have such a system in place and are already reaching the 90% targets. And it has also been confirmed by the European Commission. Very recently, in an interview done by Frans Timmermans, the Executive Vice President of the European Commission, he stressed that there is pretty much no other way that member states will be able to achieve the 90% separate collection target if they don't introduce a deposit refund scheme. Now, if we look at what's next in terms of the implementation of the directive and next steps, as I hope I have managed to show you, this is a very ambitious piece of EU legislation that member states and industry will have to implement. Member states have until the 3rd of July next year to transpose this directive into their national laws. At the same time, the European Commission is currently preparing several what they call implementing acts and guidance documents, which are basically documents that help member states implement the directive and provide some more technical details. For example, the implementing act defining the calculation of the separate collection targets and guidelines on the definition of plastic, single-use plastic products that will be covered under the scope of the directive. Both of these documents are expected to be adopted this summer. Now, as you might also know, the new European Commission has set a clear objective and ambition to reach a European Green Deal, which is the priority. And circular economy forms one of the main blocks of the Green Deal. The Commission adopted in March a so-called Circular Economy Action Plan, where it lists all the very ambitious measures and actions that it plans to take in the next years, including further reducing packaging waste and support design for reuse and recyclability. Another measure that is expected as an outcome of the directive is the introduction of deposit refund schemes in many member states. We have already seen that as a result of the directive, Many member states have either already introduced such a scheme or are currently looking into introducing one. But I will leave it to the next speakers to provide you a bit more details about such schemes and best practices. With that, I would like to thank you for your attention, and please feel free to get in touch if you have questions or need more information. Here are my contact details. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Tina. We're going to see Tina soon in the Q&A session. So going straight to the next speaker, Mrs. Anna Larsson. She's from Reloop. She's a Swede working in Brussels. She will present deposit schemes as a practical tool to maximize collection, reuse, and recycling. She's a specialist in the circular economy and sustainable waste management. Her company's ambition is to share the knowledge, connect and inspire various stakeholders to develop and implement closed-loop solutions for the circular economy. What she will present is the European best practices in the sustainable management of beverage containers. So Anna, the stage is yours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can hear me. Greetings from rainy Sweden. And we have heard from the previous speakers about the challenge related to the plastic packaging, the challenge related to the beverage packaging that is actually very much littered, as we have heard, and also takes up a lot of volume in our bins in the households. And today I would like to talk about the practical solutions related to this fraction of the municipal waste, and the solution that leads to better recycling, higher recycling, but also higher reusability. So some of the European countries and also some countries in the world implemented the deposit for beverage containers. And you can see on the left-hand side why the collection rates in the systems are extremely high, exceed 85%. But the results of the deposit systems do not stop here. We are talking about the systems that actually provide for the circular economy implementation. Now, European Union talks about essential requirements and modulated fees. This is the melody of the future, but actually the deposit systems for decades have already implemented that. In the deposit systems, you do not see the PET bottle covered with the thermocontractable label of PVC. This is not allowed. This is the essential requirement in practice, because that would prevent the good quality recycling or recycling at all. In the deposit systems, you also see the modulated fees that motivate producers to use the material that would be most optimal for the high quality recycling, material recycling. And it's not a surprise that more and more countries, on top of those which already have the system, are going to implement that. But how to keep the collected recyclables in the country, in the local market, how to stop them locally and provide for the green jobs, how to prevent the shipment and export of those valuable and collected recyclables. Sweden, where I am, has found a solution and has also implemented that for over a decade. So the deposit system operator in Sweden built a recycling facility, the hall, production hall, and he invited the recycler to come there to place the technology line and to process the packaging waste in form of PET bottles for the further recycling processes. So we are talking about the practical solutions, local solution, door-to-door recycling. But it doesn't stop here, because it's also some legal elements that are very, very advantageous for the local, for closing the loop and implementation of the local circular economy. In the contract with this recycler, the deposit system operator says, leave as much material as possible to the local producers. Those local producers should have right of first refusal to purchase the rPET and to be able to put to market the PET bottles that they have previously introduced to the market. So in Sweden, we see the closing the loop, locally, creating local jobs and the developed circular economy that has been taking place for over a decade. Now this solution is in practice implemented also in the neighbor country in Norway. Now let's talk a little bit about the refillables and talk a little bit where we are. ReLoop has conducted the study, and we now know that only 20% of the beverage packaging is the refillable beverage packaging in the world. Slovenia is very much on that level. In Sweden, the percentages are even lower. We know that the European Union has ambition to increase reusability, to increase the number of the refillable containers. The European countries now have the long catalog of the measures that can be utilized. Maybe those measures will become obligatory to jump on the next level of the waste hierarchy. They can reach for implementation of the deposit systems, also obligatory for refillables. They can reach, as we know, some countries have done it already, for the eco taxes or eco levies or green fees, punishing the single-use containers. They can implement quotas. We see the example of Romania. We can see in the future also bonuses for the refillables, also for the packaging type, like standardized bottle, that is the most environmental friendly and the most friendly for the logistics in the system. We can also see the reduced VAT rates and obligations for the green procurement. Now, ReLoop, to continue on to build on the study that we did, which shows that there's massive decrease in the refillable containers. Now we would like to build on that and see what of those measures are successful, have been successful, and under what conditions, and maybe based on that propose solutions to be implemented. So where does the deposit system for single use come in? So in many countries in Europe, in Sweden, Finland, even though we don't have many refillables, it's below 10%. Deposit systems for single use help a lot, because we see and we know we bring the refillables to exactly the same collection point. And on the right-hand side, you see the crate that I sometimes use for the different beverages. I can take this crate with over a dozen of containers, bring it back and leave exactly in the same collection point. I can also purchase the refillable beverage in the refillable bottle and bring it back to the shop and also place the bottle one by one if I don't buy the full crate. And this creates a lot of opportunities. Let me come back to the previous slide. Now you see the pictures not from Sweden, but from Lithuania. The consumer is not confused. The system is user-friendly. He's using exactly the same collection infrastructure. The system provides for the lower costs and also lower carbon footprint. And I would like to finish with this slide showing the development of the deposit systems. We firmly believe that the reusability that will be the part of the European strategy can be very much supported by the deposit systems, because they already have collection, or will have, if they have not been implemented yet, collection infrastructure. And they also have the legal structure in form of the created entity that has contacts with the producers and with the retailers to build on and offer other services. We know already today that they can share logistics, that they can share storage, and we also know from the example from Northeast America that the deposit system operator for one way can also provide for the preparation for reuse. And in the middle part of this picture, you see the inspection bottle instrument for the refillable bottles that the system operator offers to the local producers. Not to stop there, we see the growing market for the events and festivals where the deposit system operators, like the one in Estonia, you see the Facebook fan page of the Estonian system, offer the solutions for those big meeting platforms where they bring the reusable cups. When they take them back, they wash them and they reuse them again. So I hope that this have given you some inspiration for the possible implementation on national levels in your countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. We will see you soon in the Q&A section. There were a couple of Baltic countries mentioned in her talk, and we are actually staying there. So we're staying in the northern part of Europe. We're going to Lithuania. So the next speaker is Mr. Saulius Gladauskas from Lithuanian Brewer Association. He will present again in a similar fashion as the previous two speakers, practical implementation of deposit schemes. So he's the leading voice in the field of the Lithuanian brewer industry's ethical and competitive traditions. He will present the impressive results that Lithuania has achieved from obligatory deposit systems for one-way and refillable beverage containers. Saulius, the stage is yours.
Hello. Just would like to see my presentation.
You need to click into it and then next.
Where it is. Yep. So today I will introduce you how one-way packaging, deposit for one-way packaging helps to refillables. Voluntary buyback system for beer refillable glass bottles in Lithuania existed for a long time, actually coming from the Soviet past, followed after independence, already in free market, free economy, and it was volunteer, was operated by almost all retailers, including modern trade. Brewers were using standardized bottles, and at that time only 5 types of bottles were in the system. In Lithuania currently is 80% of glass bottles for beer are refillables, but long time ago it was almost 100% glass bottles refillable. We used to have PET in beer, we used to have cans, but all glass bottles were refillables. All collection was manual, including modern trade. However, obligatory deposit system needs to be introduced because volunteer had some disadvantages. No incentives for consumers because the deposit level was not fixed, and many other disadvantages. So Lithuanian Parliament adopted the obligatory system in 2004. However, only in 2006 deposit system became operational because of long negotiations with retailers on the handling fee. System is administered by a non-profit company, Deposit System Administrator. I am the head of that company. This was founded by 5 brewers. Actually, only 7 companies, now currently 8 are in this system as customers. In 2016, Coca-Cola joined us. In 2007, we are already 6 types of RGB with annual turnover of 200 million bottles. For a country with 3 million population, it was quite significant amount. However, it was shrinking. It was considered as not very convenient because all other bottles, all other packages like PET and cans you could throw away. The intelligent consumers were throwing them into these separate collection bins, but they shouldn't bring them back. And due to that inconvenience, actually sales during actually 10 years dropped by 4 times, from 200 million to 62 million bottles. And until 2016, collection was 100% manual, was not very convenient, and was quite expensive. And the number of bottles was increasing heavily. However, in February 2016, collection of RGB was merged with one-way packaging, because this year the obligatory deposit system for one-way packaging was introduced. Deposit value was 10 cents for one-way, and for refillables, one-way packages from shops go to our counting centers, and RGB, returnable glass bottles, were going back to producers, are going back to producers. For collection of returnable glass bottles, producers pay to retailers handling fee plus deposit. Producers also pay to a one-way deposit system administrator for bottles, refillable bottles, collected automated way, RVMs. Some of RGB users using centralized system where all their refillables are collected into the counting center of one-way packaging. Benefits from cooperation of two deposit return systems. I am going back 2 slides, and you see the chart. Sales of product in refillable glass bottles dropped, was shrinking heavily from 240 million to 65 million very quickly, very rapidly. But the curve, as you see, then one-way packaging deposit was introduced in 2016, flattened. Actually, it was recovering, but it didn't recover because of some other factors. For example, excise tax from 2017, beginning of 2017, was more than double, and sales of beer dropped by 15%. However, the loss of refillables was much lower. It means actual recovery. Much more convenient, this system much more convenient for consumers. The same collection points, the same price. Consumers even don't know that there are 2 DRS. They are facing just one. No more discrimination of RGB on inconvenience, because now you have to bring any kind of package, whether it's if you bought beer, you have to bring cans, you have to bring PET, then there is no discrimination on inconvenience anymore. And as you saw in the chart, RGB sales shrinking, flattened, even started recovering. What consumers think about that? We ran a survey, and you know that, as I told in previous slide, that for consumers, no difference whether it's refillable or it is just one way. So 97 consumers satisfied in general with the functioning of DRS. 95 consumers mentioned that littering decreased. And 97% of consumers say that deposit system is necessary. Actually, before introducing before introducing the deposit system on one-way packaging, only 70% were saying that it is necessary. And one very strong argument for the DRS, for the obligatory DRS, is that 93% of consumers admitted that introduction of DRS encouraged them to regard sorting out of all types of waste more responsibly. So it's better to see something once than hear about 1,000 times. Therefore, welcome everybody to Vilnius and see how it works.
I'm sure we will come there when we will be able to travel more freely. So Saulius, thank you very much. You stay on stage, so stay on with video. And at this point, I would like to invite all the previous speakers. So Anna, Tina, Uli, Tommy, because we're gonna have a short Q&A session. We're slightly over time, not that big a deal. So we already have a couple of questions. Now for the audience, okay? Right now I see it's 118 of you. And Mr. Marko Mavor posed the question, although I don't see him during the among the attendees. I do see Erika Oblak. So we have an opportunity to also give you voice. So Erika, what I will now do, if you can speak also in your microphone, I will give you the permission. It says allowed to talk. So you can actually ask your question, because I know you have two questions, one for Ulrike Gelbmann and one for Tina Ajdic. You can directly ask her as into the call. We'll see if that's going to happen. So Erika, can we hear you?
I hope so.
Yeah, so you can ask your questions directly. Yeah.
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation so far. I have a question for Mrs. Gelbmann. Many of those initiatives you presented in your presentation, we already exist also in Slovenia. But my question is, how do the Austrian government support those initiatives? With which economic or financial instruments? And thank you for your answer.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, there is not so much really public support or government support, at least by our federal government. Some of the initiatives are supported by the local municipalities. Others get some support from the federal countries and their administrations, and sometimes they also get support from initiatives like what we call Verpackungskoordinierungsstelle, which is a sort of a hand down of this ARA organization, because they have to put a little bit of their license fees for the packaging into waste prevention activities. So the zero waste communities or zero waste groups can apply there. But actually the public funding is not really that great. So it's mostly a civil society driven activity, and they get their funding just from project to project. Maybe we will have Sarah Reindl as a presenter as well. She's one of the initiators of Das Gramm and Dekagramm, and they also have a very strong zero waste initiative. That's the reason why I did not choose them, because Sarah is going to present that anyway. So maybe you can ask her in the afternoon or later on, actually. So unfortunately, I cannot really give a totally positive answer. This is still mainly activity-driven, commitment-driven.
Sure, thank you very much. Erika, you had another question for Mrs. Ajdic, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, yes, I do. It's about the extended producer responsibility. I know that in the waste directive, there is 100% responsibility of the companies that put the packaging on the market. And my question is that 100% responsibility a part of the minimum EPR? And are there any exceptions? And if yes, in which case?
Unmute, Tina, just unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yes, in terms of the EPR, the minimum requirements are set in the Waste Framework Directive. And what the Single-Use Plastics Directive adds is on top of what is already in the Waste Framework Directive. And this is mainly adding the cost of litter cleanup and awareness raising. So to expand even further the EPR costs.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Erika, for your questions. Now I will give the voice to Senta. She already typed the question in, but it's actually better to hear her live. So Senta, if you can speak into the event itself, it would be better. So you have a question.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. We as retailers have a problem where we can get scientific information on good alternatives for single-use plastic that really is environmentally friendlier. The problem is that some consumers actually want alternatives, even though maybe for the environment it would be better if we would not use alternatives, but maybe the containers or items that are more reusable and so on. And it's difficult to get the information which alternatives are actually scientifically proven to be environmentally more friendly, because as it was already mentioned, a few decades ago, it was considered that biodegradable plastic was or bio-based plastic was better alternative than conventional plastic, and now it's actually proven that it really is not that much environmentally more acceptable. So where can we get more, let's say, more scientifically proven information what alternatives would be really be environmentally more friendly than conventional plastic?
I can answer, or at least partly answer that question. So there are already some guidelines elaborated by different countries or regions. One of them is the, in terms of plastic, guidelines for packaging, plastic packaging recyclability. I will send it to the organizers. It is in English. It is elaborated actually as a commission of the all Nordic countries, and it targets plastic packaging. And in the guidelines, we can see what plastic packaging is environmentally okay, what are the conditions, how plastic packaging should be designed to provide for best material recycling. So as I mentioned, I will be able to send it to you. I know also that the guidelines are elaborated in Germany, in Austria. So I guess it is pretty easy. I think even I have those guidelines, so I will be able to provide it to the organizers. But I think what we should remember is that good packaging is not everything, because we need to provide for the good collection and pre-treatment and recycling of those packaging. It will not make sense to just offer, I know you see from the perspective of the retailers, but I mean, it's to have the 100% recyclable bottle, speaking about the beverage containers introduced to the market, is meaningless if you don't have the follow-up, if you don't have the system that will result with almost 100% collection of that bottle and the good material recycling. So we need to remember that eco-designed packaging is one thing, but also have in mind the processes which take place at the other phases of the packaging life cycle.
I would like to add up to Anna that the key is collection and then recycling. Actually, for example, PET cans and glass is collected 92% in Lithuania, and of those 92%, 100% is recycled. Cans to cans, 100%. Glass to glass bottles, 100%. PET, it's maybe PET to PET bottle, maybe 30%, but actually other high-end products are made out of that recycled PET. Therefore, again, we are saying that 100% of PET is recycled. Therefore, the collection is a key. But definitely, if you are placing in the market, even having very good collection for beverage containers like DRS, But if you have like multi-barriers, polluted other, using different kind of other materials in plastic bottles, then it is making harder, making more difficult, more expensive to recycle them, and of course would not be 100% recycling. Therefore, the material chosen and the collection, what is important.
May I add something here, please? That's all perfectly correct, what you've said now, but also supermarkets, retailers should take into account bringing down the amount of packaging material, which means like motivating consumers to bring their own shopping bags or to bring their own containers or whatever, to have them filled inside the supermarket. So this is even beyond the recycling and the collection, which is very important, of course.
May I say something? Yeah. Some of the activities, like bring your own shopping bags or the bags for vegetables and fruit, some of them, at least in Slovenia, I think the majority of the bigger retailers already are offering or these alternatives, or trying to convince consumers to use them. Because in Slovenia, at least, a lot of vegetables and fruit is already sold, not packaged, so without packaging. We have a bit of a problem with packaging for bread and things like cheese and stuff like that, because we have some health, food and safety health regulations. So we have to, that's a challenge on its own. But we had, like, and somebody already mentioned, some of the consumers do not want to change. And we are, as retailers, are also trying to convince them to go into a more sustainable consumption pattern, to use the packaging that it's not single-use packaging, but from conventional plastics, and try to offer them alternatives. But for us, as I said before, it's hard to, because we are not scientists, we are just ordinary people as well, try to figure out which alternatives are actually environmentally more friendly. I mean, it also changes all the time with new scientific discoveries, but at least where we could get really, scientifically based information, because from the let's say, producers of packaging, we get a lot of information, a lot of, let's say, offers of products or packaging that could be used or sold. And we are not really sure that that's not just a business, that it actually really is environmentally more friendly, not just sold as such. And then over the time, we figure out that that's not really the case. So that's why I asked for help on getting the scientifically based information, so that our choices of what we offer to the consumers would be a better choice from environmental perspective. So thank you very much for all your insight and information.
Thank you, Sinta. We're going to take one more question, which was typed in, but Matej Černjavić, you also got the voice now. So if you want to, you can also ask it in person to the panelists, and then also maybe just short replies, and then we're going to wrap up the Q&A and we go with the agenda. So Matej.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me well.
We can hear you well, yeah.
You can, great. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you very much for all the panelists for your valuable inputs. My question is directed to a packaging format that hasn't been really discussed in this panel, and this is the beverage cartons. As you know, they also fall within the scope of the SUP. And my questions related to these are maybe what exactly or how big of a problem they are in terms of the marine litter, what percentage of the recovered litter do they represent, and how they should be treated in line with this under the expanded TPR, so that the producers are not really disproportionately burdened, especially if they only represent a smaller part in marine litter. And if there is time and if everyone is willing, I would also like to hear your view on their contribution of the contribution of this packaging format to the European Green Deal, to the recycling targets and so on, so also related to some other directives that should be transposed to the national legislations in the next month. Thank you very much in advance.
Thank you. I'm sure they're all willing. As far as time is concerned, you have to be short in your responses, yeah?
Actually, if I may say, I know that quite some politicians already listening to our conference, and the solution for these complicated materials like beverage cartons, and it was mentioned bread packaging or cheese packaging, there are very simple solutions. Fiscal means, it meaning that the more difficult, more complicated material to recycle and to recycle and to collect, it has to be heavier taxed, and it creates the double pressure. First of all, pressure for producers to find the solution of packaging that is easier recoverable, and secondly, it generates revenue for the state also to finance the solutions. So,
I believe Tina and Tommy will also have a reply on this one.
Yes, maybe I can start.
Yes, please.
Yes, in terms of future direction of the EU, it will all be about design for reuse and recycling, which is key. So recyclability, is it recyclable? Is it easily recycled? That will be the key question, and I will leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Tommy, maybe the last words, and then we'll move on.
This is just to recap, the key messages are indeed to make sure that whatever comes into the use cycle can be somehow recycled, but primarily we have to understand that we have to reduce the use. And this is where the whole concept of being smart with plastic falls in the sense that we have to use as less plastic as we can and as less materials as we can in a resource efficiency economy, and then to ensure that these materials remain in the circular economy cycle. And I would leave it as such as well. And yeah, wishing you the best of luck with the rest of the conference.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you very much to all the speakers, Saulius, Uli, Tina, Tommy, and Anna. We're going to continue now with the more interactive session. It's actually going to be a quiz. So the quiz is called Kahoot. Maybe some of you know it from some other webinars or events like this. It's actually an online quiz. We will all look at the questions and you will be responding to them with your mobile phone. So this is the time where you actually get to use your mobile phone. We will switch shortly to the presentation. The prize for the winner is the bottle that we have seen before, a really nice eco-sustainable bottle. Let me just switch the screen now. The Kahoot is a really nice online video quiz. So there's going to be a little bit of music also behind, and we're going to go through 10 questions. The way you're going to do it is you, as I said, take your phone and type in kahoot.it. Okay. And the first thing you will see is they will want a PIN number, which is this one, 886295. Okay. And now we're going to be watching for the number of players increasing in the left side. Okay, let me just check if it works. All right. Maybe what we will need to do.
We don't hear the music yet.
I know. Maybe we will need to do a reset of this Kahoot. So bear with me. So give me just 5 seconds and I will actually reset this Kahoot, and maybe you're gonna do a new PIN number. So sometimes this needs to be reloaded because obviously we're all doing this live. It's not pre-recorded. Your Kahoot is now loading. Classic one. Yeah. So what's going to happen now is you're going to have a new PIN number. So this is the new one now. Okay. So again, take your phone, go into kahoot.it and put in the number 219480. Now we're already having the names. Yeah. We have Tommy, Mojca, Sara, Source, and so on. So we have about 100 attendees. So we're going to start the quiz when about 50 or so of you will get into it with a nice prize of eco-sustainable bottle. I'm going to explain as I just did how this is going on, and then start the interview, the quiz, and then I will leave it to Andrea to actually comment the questions. She put the quiz together, so she obviously knows all the questions. She will not say it. So we have 39, 40, and she's also not playing. Yeah, that really wouldn't be fair because she knows all the answers. They're not too difficult because I've seen them before, but they do make you think a little bit. So we have
the strength of the questions is increasing. The first ones are the easiest, and then they are getting harder and harder.
And also the timing. I mean, you're gonna see the question, and then you have some time to respond. But the faster you are, the more points you're gonna get.
But can I ask you to reduce the volume just a bit?
Sure. Yeah.
So we will hear the questions properly.
Like that.
Perfect.
47. So we agreed when we reach 50, we go in. 48. 2 more. Okay, one was out. I think we can start, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So let's start with the first question. So you're gonna read the question. There's gonna be a couple of seconds, and then immediately when you know, you press the right color button on your telephone to answer it. So here we go.
So let's start. We are all about plastics. How much of the plastic waste collected in Europe is actually packaging? I have to remind you that if you are replying faster, you get more points.
We only have about 30 seconds for each question, so we have 45 answers already in it.
2 seconds left. Okay. Well, actually, the right answer is 62%. According to Plastic Recyclers Europe, the biggest source of plastic waste is packaging. So who answered this
15
one?
of you
Correct.
got this one right, but 15 also got wrong. But let's say the majority got it right, okay? Next, in the meantime, we're gonna see the results. So right now, Jernea is on top after the first question.
She was the fastest, obviously.
She was the fastest also. Next question.
Who is the current EU Commissioner for Environment, Oceans and Fisheries?
This is actually his face, right?
Yes.
That's him. So if you know him personally, then you will know. Otherwise, you will have to know the name.
You have 20 seconds for this reply, I think. I think Saulius should know the answer. Yeah, Lithuanian Virginijus Sinkevičius is the youngest commissioner at the European Union, ensuring the environment, oceans and fisheries remain at the core of the European Green Deal. So let's see the results now.
Okay. Jernea
is still the leader? No.
No,
Helena.
Jernea is on the second place. So Helena is now on the first place. So let's go to the next question.
So this is the size of microplastic particles. What is the size? Seconds left. Yeah. Actually, it was agreed in 2008 at the University of Washington, Tacoma, at the research workshop that it's 5 millimeters or less. And the microplastics term was first used in 2004 by Dr. Richard Thompson from the UK. So yeah. Let's see the leaderboard. Oh, MS went really far up. So Helena is number 4. Irnea is nowhere to be seen. So MS. I wonder who this is, but he's the winner now. Let's go on. You still have the chance. Which is the most recycled material per ton in the world? Ten seconds left. So, according to Steel Recycling Institute, steel is the most recycled material on the planet, more than all other materials combined. 86% recycled in 2014. It can be recycled continually with no degradation in performance and from one product to another. All right, let's see the leaderboards. Ah, Tommy. Tommy, is that the same Tommy as we were listening to? I mean, that's she knows about this stuff, yeah. So, but she can be an also participant in this one. The participant. Okay. So you have to be really fast. Which is the most numerous litter type found on the beaches of the Slovenian Sea? I have to remind you that Slovenia is a bit, I would say, different than other parts of the Mediterranean, I think. Okay, cigarette butts and filters are the most common litter item on the Slovenian coast, according to National Pilot Monitoring Program in Slovenia. Last year at the Volunteer Clean Coast event, volunteers collected in just 2 hours more than 20,000 cigarette butts from nearly 18 kilometers of the Slovenian coast. So we have a really high concentration of cigarette butts on some parts of Slovenian coast. And we don't like that. But we do like winners, and Oli is the winner right now on the scoreboard. So it's a fight between Oli and Tommy, obviously. Okay. But come on, others, you are competitors as well. Question number 6. What was the price of Brent oil barrel on May 2020? In May 2020, sorry. And the time is up. Yes, the right answer is 25.90 euros, compared with 16.20 the previous month. Over the last 12 months, the price has fallen more than 58%. Leaderboard, still fight between Uli and Tommy. Sasos next question. Got high. Yeah, let's go on. Which of the following common items do not contain plastic? Do not contain plastic. Correct, yes, none of the above. Polyethylene is one of the most popular components of gum base. Glitter is made from plastic sheets and is used in wide arrays of products, including cosmetics. And of course, textile is made from nylon, rayon, polyester, spandex, acrylic, and other synthetic fibers. Thank you. Let's look at the scoreboard. Primož is rising, Uli still firmly on top. Question number 8. Is it true or false? Up to 19 microplastic fragments float in a cubic meter of sea breeze air coming from the Atlantic Sea. Is it true or is it false? It's true. French researchers published this year a research where they showed that the sea is also a source of microplastics in the air, actually. It was shown that up to 19 microplastic fragments float in a cubic meter of sea, coming together with bacteria, viruses, and salts to our air.
Scoreboard is showing Uli, Primož, and Sara on the first 3 places.
Okay.
Go on.
Who can beat Uli? Let's see. This is double points. So by when should EU member states transpose into law and implement the subdirective? Three seconds left. Yeah. According to Article 17 of the directive, member states shall bring into force the laws, regulations, and administrative provisions necessary to comply with this article by 3rd of July next year.
As Andrea already mentioned, they are getting more difficult, the questions. And
Yes.
Primož just took the first place.
Okay.
Well, we are going to the last question.
Who is also double score, so it's tight. In 1978, which company introduced the first 2-liter PET plastic bottles to the world? Which company did use PET plastic bottles first? Three seconds left. Yeah, Coca-Cola and Pepsi were the first. PET has been around since 1941. And DuPont chemists developed it while experimenting with polymers to make textiles. It was lightweight, safe, cheap, and recyclable. In other words, it was perfect containers to set the stage for the bottle binge that followed. And in 1978, Coca-Cola and Pepsi introduced the first PET plastic bottles to the world.
Okay, thank you very much.
Let's see who is the winner.
Let's see the winner now.
The 3rd place goes to Tommy. Congratulations. The 2nd is MS, and the 1st one is, who is the winner? Uli.
So Uli won. The runners-up, number 4 and number 5, Sloan and Primož. In a way expected, because obviously we gathered the experts today, and they know about these things, and the questions actually got pretty difficult at the end. So thank you to all the participants. It was fun, but there's also a prize. And since we know Uli, we will give her the prize directly. Now, just a comment for those of you who don't know, Andrea, she's not here just for the quiz. She's actually the main organizer. So this whole event today is the way it is because she was pulling all the strings and so on. And
thank you.
She's the most nervous, how will we do the whole event and so on. So she's actually the one behind the whole thing. So
I'm loving the event so far. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Andrea. Now I will stop sharing and we will go to the coffee break, which is well deserved. Coffee obviously is local, yeah, so it's your coffee. We're gonna share, so you see the timer here, yeah? So don't leave the event. The attendees, the panelists, nobody, don't leave the event. So be in the event. You're gonna see, there's gonna be some music behind, you're gonna see the timer going down. So we still have about 11 minutes of the break. So you go to the toilet, you take some water, some coffee, and we're gonna share, already shared the link to a survey. So if some of you might not be here with us till the end of the event and the workshops after, if you leave before, please do give us your input about how the whole event went, because obviously we want to do it better and better every time we do it. So there's a link to the survey in the chat. Please do put the survey in if you're gonna leave before, otherwise we're gonna put this survey also at the end. So 10-minute break, music is up, and see you in about 10 minutes.
Results of our faculty in this area, and description of good practice examples of cooperation with partners from industry and research organizations, and at the end point out an interesting funding opportunity for SMEs for cooperation in similar projects in Slovenia and Austria within the Start Circles project. The fact is that due to the ever-increasing environmental awareness and pressure to use ecologically friendlier materials, their unique look, relatively good mechanical properties, lower weight, We have seen the increased use of thermoplastic biocomposites with various natural fibers and fillers for different applications. For example, natural fibers and fillers can be a good substitute for inorganic fibers and fillers such as glass fibers, most commonly used for reinforcement of thermoplasts used for technically demanding applications. They're also used for packaging applications and design applications due to their unique look. Research shows that the unique look and touch convey high quality and value and are therefore well received by customers. The biocomposite markets thus continue to grow. They are stable in established markets like construction and automotive and show strong growth in the more recently developed markets for consumer goods and packaging. Development of different thermoplastic composites with various fibers and fillers has been a focus of many research organizations and companies for the past 2 decades, including our Faculty for Polymer Technology. In the past 7 years, we have successfully developed thermoplastic composites which are cost-effective, environmentally friendly, have lower bulk density, interesting look, good recycling characteristics, are less abrasive to tools and machines, and even some that have mechanical properties similar to composites with glass fibers. What kind of biocomposites are we talking about? We are talking about biocomposites with different polymer matrices, fuel and bio-based, and also recycled, and various different fillers and fibers, mostly bio-waste. You can see some examples on the slide. We have tested bio-based and biodegradable matrices such as PLA and thermoplastic starch, bio-based and non-biodegradable such as green polyethylene, and also technical polymers such as ABS, polyamide 12, and others. And as you can see, we have also used various types of different bio-waste as fibers and fillers, from paper pulp, hemp fibers, algae waste, different vegetable waste, and many more. And also, of course, different additives such as lubricants, plasticizers, antioxidants, and others. Within different projects such as Cell Cycle and Start Circles and partners from industry, we have managed to develop a database of fibers, fillers, and additive characteristics, optimize biocomposite recipes for different applications and technologies, develop methods which enable good compatibilization between fiber and matrix without pre-treatment, which means without additional costs and use of dangerous chemicals, compound the biocomposites and injection molded to produce test samples, characterize their thermomechanical and physical properties, and create a database of more than 250 samples and more than 40 different fibers, fillers, and matrices. We have also done additional tests of environmental influences, CT and SEM photos, moisture uptake analysis, and multiple recycling tests, as well as, of course, life cycle analysis for some applications. When analyzing recycling of biocomposites, we found, for example, that comparing to glass fiber reinforced thermoplastics, drop of stiffness and strength at each single processing step can be approximately 30%, while biocomposites maintain their values of stiffness and strength even after the 7th processing step. We have also produced prototypes for most promising biocomposites with injection molding, extrusion, 3D printing, in-mold decoration technologies, and also some post-processing technologies such as sensor printing and laser engraving, which I will show later on. We are now, for example, in a project developing biocomposites for rotomolding as well. How did we do this? The Faculty of Polymer Technology in Slovenije has state-of-the-art equipment in 4 different laboratories, which enables us to do R&D from polymer synthesis to characterization of mechanical, thermal, physical, and chemical properties, compounding, processing with various technologies, and testing of biodegradation and environmental influences. Let me now show you some final applications, products which we have done with Slovenian companies. As you can see, they range from automotive applications, such as the BMW headrest prototype you can see in the upper left side of the slide, made for collector from high-density polyethylene and viscantous fibers and ABS with waste paper. The most important benefit for the customer in this case are lower weight, less tool abrasion, better environmental, without raising the final price of the product, which is of course very important. We have also done CT and SEM tests in collector to check out the fiber distribution and compatibilization with the matrix, as well as moisture uptake tests. You can also see applications for different consumer goods, such as handles for trekking rods made from thermoplastic elastomer and different fibers and fillers, gardening pots made from thermoplastic starch, which is biodegradable and home compost, where we synthesize the TPS in our labs. Watch straps, for example, made from also thermoplastic elastomer and their waste leather, so waste leather from the company, injection molded and decorated with the IMD technology, and many different filaments for 3D printing with PLA, TPS, ABS, and other matrices. We also have headrests for violins with biodegradable and fuel-based matrices for Viva la Musica, gears for small kitchen appliances, biodegradable packaging for watches, where the material was modified also for laser engraving. In the COVID time, we also made biocomposite masks, also modified for laser engraving, different kinds of kitchenware for the company Skaza from Slovenia, and also biocomposites modified for sensor printing and other post-processing technologies. You can see at the bottom prototypes that we made with the Institute for Cellulose and Paper, also from Slovenia, with printed sensor electronic guide with conductive ink and LED light, and biocomposites with printed NFC chips. We have also done biocomposites, of course, with nanocrystalline and nanofibrillated cellulose, as well as microcellulose, and are planning a project for biocomposites for film extrusion for flexible packaging for food applications. With the research and development work, we have shown that biocomposites made in Slovenia are promising materials for multifunctional applications and products in many different industries, which can bring added value to the companies and the final consumer. Now, very importantly, regarding their carbon footprint and LCA, however, I have to point out that this has to be considered and analyzed case by case, application by application, because it is a fact that biopolymers and biocomposites do not, by definition, have a better carbon footprint or LCA compared to fuel-based polymers. As Ms. Šmuc mentioned in the opening speech, we need to be smart when choosing plastics, biocomposites as well, of course, and find the smartest solution for the selected application, taking into consideration the whole LCA. As we have heard from Tommy and Uli in the morning, bioplastics, bio-based or biodegradable or both, are not the solution for marine litter or single-use plastic products, and can even cause problems in the recycling stream. Thus, again, every solution needs to be well thought with looking at the whole life cycle of the product. At the end, as I said, I would like to point out the current funding opportunity for a small R&D project for SMEs from the wood and polymer industry in the Interreg Slovenia-Austria program area. You can see the program area at the bottom right side. We are thus kindly inviting the SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises from the program area to apply. The deadline is end of June. What projects are we looking for? Any challenges, projects relating to circular economy in the area of the wood or polymer industry. And the purpose of the call is the selection of 18 SMEs in the program area. The SMEs will not be financially supported, but will get non-financial support, mostly from our faculty and the other partner of the Start Circles project, Woodka Plus, and some other research institutions as well. For more info regarding the open call, you can contact Aleš Ugovšek. And of course, for any more info on biocomposites or any other research, do not hesitate to contact us. And I am looking forward to your questions in the Q&A section. That's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Maya, for a really nice, smooth presentations. And us on the organizing part of the team, we really like it when speakers are on time. So this is really good. And by the way, Aleš Ugovšek, he will be in one of the 2 workshops in the afternoon part. So thank you for this. Now, next speaker was already mentioned, I think a couple of times. Yeah. So she's Mrs. Sarah Reindl. She's from Decagram from Austria. And she's going to present experience in the retail sector from perspective of possibilities available to the small and medium enterprises. So she's a young entrepreneur with actions aligned with her beliefs. In 2016, she founded the Gram, which is a store without packaging, and then later on in 2018, the Decagram. And more about that, Sarah, please.
Thank you so much. So I will, as Mate said, talk about my experience of how to set up a package-free shop. And my subtitle is "And what to consider when founding generally a sustainable business." Because when I talk about my shop, the package-free shop, I think a lot of things you can apply to different kinds of sustainable businesses. The idea to set up a package-free shop, because this is the probably the most common question that I get is, well, is based on what I studied. I studied actually as a student from Uli, and I focused on waste management. And this idea came when I finished my studies, where I discovered that I don't want to work on the end of the waste stream, but rather at the beginning. And I wanted to have an impact or to contribute to a positive change in society or in my city. And I thought that this would be best with the business that I set up. And I heard of this idea of selling food unpackaged. And what was very appealing to me at that time was that I tried to buy my things unpackaged. I was part of an international cleanup initiative, and I even joined the Slovenian cleanup in 2011. I think it's called Očistimo. I'm not good at Slovenian, but I think this is what it's called. And what I found very appealing about this idea of an unpackaged or package-free shop was that it has a very low threshold to people to join in. Because when you talk to people about organic food or, well, living more sustainably in terms of reducing their traffic or having just one car less, people often reply in a manner where you know that it's just the threshold is just too high that people would consider changing their behavior. But I thought, or I discovered when I talked to people about reducing the package waste when you buy food, and especially the groceries that you buy every day, people are very open to this idea. So selling unpackaged food was a way to contribute to a sustainable change in my society, in my city, by offering this very low threshold opportunity to a lot of people to mainstream, to join in and to do their first things in a sustainable way. So what is the, you see already a picture on the first slide and also here. This is how it looks like. We founded it in April 2016. And the main idea, as I mentioned a few times, was to sell unpackaged food. But as I will also explain a bit later, unpackaged food was, in my opinion, not enough to have customers be our customers for a very long time if other things don't align to this way of selling food. So what we tried was to have this store as an oasis of well-being, where when you go into the store, you smell fresh baked bread, or you smell the things that we cook in the kitchen, or then you see the fresh fruits and vegetables, and you are welcomed with a big smile. And when you enter the store, that you just feel well. Then we also focused, of course, on organic food, that it has a high quality, because we didn't want to sell just unpackaged food that maybe doesn't taste nicely. It was very important to us that people come back and really enjoy the food that they have here. Yeah, and amazing taste, of course. We cooperated a lot with local farmers because we discovered that local producers are the most willing to change the way of packaging. So they produce it and then they can decide how they want to package it. And of course, there was a high interest in not packaging it at all, or just having huge quantities delivered to us. And also fair trade importers. We're working directly with some importers, and they also have huge quantities. So they don't have the small, well, they sell small packages as well, but not to us. To us, they just send the big packages. And this is how we reduce a lot of waste. What Uli also mentioned is that with not having pre-packaged food, consumers are not forced to buy in these certain amounts. Maybe they are living alone. Maybe they don't know if they want to try something. And so they can reduce their food waste as well. And how we also reduced the food waste in our store was by our Zero Waste Cafe. where we cook with the food that doesn't look so nice or that we cannot sell anymore. Then we expanded to a second store in 2 years later to integrate also a workshop space that you can see on this picture. Also, we have space for events like film screenings or readings. We could have more products because besides food, people also asked for soap and bottles and food containers or things like this. Also, a bigger storage was needed because we also expanded with an online shop and we needed a bigger storage for that. And the potential for growth, we saw that we didn't have in the first very small store because we wanted to reach more people, and this was easier with a bigger space. So this was our second store. The lessons that I learned from this, and I think this applies especially to social or sustainable businesses, is that how to deal with advice that you get. Because when you have a new way of doing business, a lot of people probably know that they know it better and give you advice. And what I learned is to take a lot of advice because it was a new way of doing business, but to filter it according to my beliefs and my value system. Always take into consideration the bigger picture, because this really helps focusing on the important parts and not losing motivation when things don't go according to plan. Challenges happen to everyone, to sustainable or not businesses, to all of the businesses, and it's not that it's not worth pursuing it anymore. This is a very important what I learned. Authenticity is something that it's like it gives you the confidence, and you don't have to make an extra effort to sell something, because if you just live it, then you can always take or lean back on your belief system, on your values, and you don't have to play a role that you're not. Unforeseeable things often happened to us, but we tried to integrate it into our way of doing business. And the last point that probably is important for all startups is how to dedicate your time, because especially if you do something innovative, people think that you have a lot of time and that they can take it in an excessive way. But what I learned, one of the biggest lessons probably was that I really dedicate my time to the things that are important to me. One thing that we discovered was that customers were really curious to buy unpackaged food and to look how the store looks like on the inside. And this was maybe the first month, or when people come to the store the first time. But what's really important is that it's still convenient, that people are educated by easily accessible information, because if you don't have packaging, we had to transport all the information that is usually on the packaging somehow in a different way. This also has a lot to do with transparency. People sometimes believe that food comes into our store without any kind of packaging, but this is of course never the case, because at least you have to have some multi-use packaging, or even paper, and sometimes big plastic bags as well. And we try to be as transparent as possible with this. And then education is something that is very important, because when you buy things like, I say couscous, and you never had this before, you don't know how to deal with it and how to cook with it. And this is when we started doing workshops where we educated people on how to consume, how to cook, how to maybe make even their own natural cosmetics, or how to make deodorants. So this is also one important thing why we opened a second store, so that we had more space for delivering these workshops and events. And then last but not least is of course the emotion, and this is what I started my presentation with, that our store was always an oasis of well-being, and people had a very nice emotion and did never perceive us as being the moral police that says you have to do it different, you have to do it like that, and then you're a good person. But we always try to go to the customers in a very positive way. And then I have 1 or 2 sentences to the Single-Use Plastics Directive, which in my opinion is very good. And I think all of my arguments were already mentioned today. What I want to focus is to not give all the responsibility to customers or to consumers, because as I mentioned, it's just acting in a moral good way or in an ecological way is never the main focus of customers. It's rather the convenience, or that it's close by and maybe that it tastes well. But I think it's a very good chance also for new startups and for new products. Thank you. That was it.
Thank you, Sarah. We will see you again
Yes.
just before we finish at the Q&A section. Thank you for the lovely presentation. We're going to continue now with the 2 gentlemen. Tourism is another sector where single-use plastic has found a great practical value, and Mr. Martin Šabec from the Perla Hit group of hotels based in Gorica in Slovenia, he will present their experience and goals to reduce plastic pollution in the hospitality sector. He's a hotelier with more than 15 years of international work experience in world-renowned hotel chains and boutique hotels. With his teams, he runs the Local Gourmet project. We will hear about this. And one of the goals is obviously also how to reduce the use of plastics in the hotel business. So, Mr. Martin Šabec, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Matej. So as you mentioned, I will present the Local Gourmet project, which is not only reducing the plastic in hospitality, which we know that is producing quite a lot of garbages and also plastic that we are trying to avoid, especially in the last few years. The global hospitality chains are trying to change this pattern. In Perla, or much wider in Group HIT, which includes 1,700 employees, and Perla itself as one of the biggest casino centers in Europe with 600 employees, a small group of people, my colleagues, start asking what we are doing in the field of changing this pattern of reducing the plastic. We said to say only that we are reducing the plastic is not enough, and it doesn't sound so nice. So we found a few areas that we can really, through the culinary experience, through the education, and also through our employees, start reducing the plastic. We found the way to call this Local Gourmet project, and for us it was this a sustainable lifestyle in a challenge for each of us. Key project challenges were 4. The first one was really to transfer the knowledge to the younger population or generation. So we start cooperating even more than before with the local biotechnical school in nearby city, where this project and similar projects with reducing the plastic and using the local ingredients became already part of the school systems. We offered all the students to be part of our practical teams. We offered environment where we can see that things from theory comes into life. We noticed also that Michelin chefs from Italy start similar projects and proving that fine dining culinary can reduce the plastic and use the plastic in the culinary, where the system that we have to follow, which is HACCP, really kind of cause some problems sometimes how to store the certain amount of ingredients. And also he offered all the scholarship students to hire them as new employees after they finish the school. The second challenge, it was really to get promoting how to use local and seasonal crops. We are a big company. We are in the Vipava Valley, where we are producing, due to the climate, quite a lot of vegetables and fruits. So we decided that we push internally that every single employee who has options to produce more or has less leftovers, it can exchange this on our green markets with other employees, or it can also sell internally in our centers and hotels. So we also start doing environmental local production circle. The third challenge that we took was really given to us by Italian Michelin chefs, which are part of the Relais Chateau Association. In last years, they decided to completely reduce the use of plastic inside the kitchen, and they succeeded. So we really invite 4 well-renowned Michelin chefs every season 1. We gave them seasonal ingredients, which was local, and challenged them how to prepare a 7-course fine dining meal in one of our hotel awarded restaurant, Calypso, awarded by Gomilo Guide in Slovenia. And we really did something good. The restaurants were full, the interest was quite big. And also we transferred the knowledge from them to our local chefs and also to the students from the school who were awarded for a good job at the students' part. And of course, the biggest challenge for us was how really to join commitment and all the partners in one story to reduce the use of plastics. Hospitality is in the last few years really focused on how to change this inside the rooms, inside the culinary departments, inside the entire hotels. And it was not easy. After we start calculating, the employees came with the idea to really start calculating how many plastic cups are we using per year just to offer employees free beverages during the day. We came to a number of 600,000 plastic cups per year just in our hotel. It was not easy to really replace them with the paper cups. They are expensive, the costs cannot go up, but we found a solution. We first of all negotiate with our outsourcing companies to really change the plastic cups to paper cups in hot drinks. We change our plastic to also carbon one. And also our company decided to buy every single employee a glass bottle that they can use during their work inside the hotel. And we really reduce it. Employees were not unhappy. They accept these options and they start even to being proud that they are part of this project. And also we developed this options of separation the garbage in the rooms. As you see on the picture, we change also the equipment for the housekeeping. We start separating the cosmetic tubes, which are from plastic, newspapers. We replaced the minibar only with the glass bottles. And because of that, it was also a better collaboration with the outsourcing company who's taking the garbage on a daily basis from our company. The second thing was really after we were sure that we are doing the right way and the employees are accepting it, how to transfer this practice into the guests. It's not always easy if you're paying for a hotel room, if you are invited by a hotel as a casino guest. Most of the things are, you're enjoying the services that hotels are providing. Nobody really thinks that it can be a different way. So we took out of our system the Cafe Dolce Vita, which is quite renowned cafe in Nova Gorica, and we start completely adjusting the plastic. First of all, with plastic cups, with takeaway boxes, with straws. Some of the drinks don't offer straws at all, only the guest requests, and we always tell them that we are proud of the project we are doing, and a lot of guests are deciding really to go with the project and with us. And because of that, we saw that it is possible. And we are continuing this project also with our restaurants, the other restaurants, which are bigger challenges than small units. And guests are accepting us and not complaining, because we know that if the guest complains, majority of the times they will get something free of charge. The second thing was really to put scholars, young children into our practice environment and really show them that we can make the things happen with local ingredients, which are tastier, which use less packaging. The footprint is much smaller, and of course try to avoid, when we are storing the things, of plastic and replace them with other alternatives. Of course, the Michelin chefs, they were not only the ones who were pushing us towards this project, but we were challenging them too. So not only with local ingredients, we were also asking them how to do the things, how to change the things. And if they can do it, we are talking about people who are selling the dinners for $300–400. per person and not using this traditional plastic coverages and garbages that are used when the transportation comes from the supplier to hotel. We've seen that this practice can really bring some good ideas also to heat and also to our hotel Perla. And we keep this project live. It was not only a one-year project that we started in 2019. We are adding more and more units. We proved that a huge hospitality chain can do it, and why would not the smaller units be able to do the same things? Employees are still bringing new ideas. We're still striving to the cost that shouldn't be expensier than it was before with the plastic. But we've seen a lot of options, not only the paper, we've tried also the grass options for, let's say, straws and similar things. And the entire Global Gourmet as a lifestyle project became for us a starting point to the project, which is a national one, Slovenia European Region of Gastronomy 2021, where the main focus inside the EU will be really into the sustainable, local, that we will be able to move the guests from the restaurant to the producer, that we will have behind also a story. That we will not only just say that we are reducing the plastic, but we are doing something good. And also as a company that we will become a better business partner to the planet Earth. So I would say thank you for your time. And if you will have any additional questions, I'll be available for you in Q&A.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you very much. And I have to say thank you for the time, because you gave us a couple of minutes, which is always very good, because sometimes we need it, especially in the Q&A. I'm sensing there's going to be a lot of questions. Maybe one announcement. There was already one question, a general one regarding the presentations and so on. To all the audience, all the presentations from today's event will be available on the website of this event. So obviously after, and also we're recording this event, so you're gonna also be able to see the recording afterwards. So thank you again, Martin. And we move onwards. Another important sector encountering single-use plastic products is obviously the food and beverage industry. Mr. Marian Šefčovič is from the company, which is on one side a very known brand dear to our hearts, three hearts, Radenska, while it is also part of the Kofola group. And I've been to Czech Republic and Slovakia several times, and I know how big Kofola is there. So Mr. Šefčovič, he became the president of the section of non-alcoholic and alcoholic beverages at the Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Slovenia, the GZS, and he will acquaint us with the dilemma that beverage producers are facing regarding single-use plastic requirements, and obviously also present the view that Radenska has on sustainability, where single-use plastic is, of course, an important pillar. So Marian, the stage is yours.
Hello to everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marty, for the short introduction. I can add some short information about it. Kofola Radenska Adriatic, where I'm responsible for this region, it's a part of the Kofola Group. Kofola Group is a family-owned company coming from Czechoslovakia, I can say, because all the time we are managing this company as one country on the Czech and Slovak market. Personally, I am coming from Slovakia, working now in Slovenia. And Kofola, the main business for Kofola are beverages, but last couple of years we are developing also the different segment. We have a company Ugo, which are focusing on the fresh squeezed juices, where we have like the pascalization product, or we have fresh juice bars on the retail. Then we own the one also Czech company which is producing the herbs, or focusing on the herbs, which is a really different business, but focusing on the health and lifestyle. So if I will go through my presentation is not only about the plastic, but I would like to show you the whole view on the how we are focusing on the how to say how we are focusing on the environment issue, and for us is the whole sustainability, and for us the whole sustainability. Okay, for us the whole sustainability contains from the 6 pillars. It's not only the plastic. It's not only the waste or so. And I can say that these are like the 6 pillars. It's a carbon footprint, water production, ingredients, and people, localism, and the water source. So if I will switch, I will switch. Sorry, the presentation is somehow moving.
I can see that maybe it is jumping to you. If it would be better for you, maybe we switch that. NA is switching, and you just say next slide. Would that work better for you?
Okay. Okay. Doesn't mean no. Next slide. I can repeat that. Next slide, please. So I can repeat the 6 pillars: carbon footprint, water protection. Okay. For good, it's not necessary to repeat. We are on the 3rd slide, where we are showing you that in all of our like processing, where we can, we are trying to do a circular economy. Doesn't mean we are trying to, for example, in Ugo, we are trying to find the local ingredients and healthy, then to proceed ingredients with the environmental friendly product process, supply chain, packaging, and also at the end the waste or using the or supporting the recycling and the waste management. Next slide, please. If we are going to the 6 pillars, first is the carbon footprint, where we are focusing to decrease this. For example, in Radenska, also for the supply chain, we are using the trains. We are delivering a couple of containers. We are trying all our suppliers supply us if it's possible. We are trying. For example, on the Czechoslovakian market, we own the one of the largest fleet of CNG trucks in the Central Europe, which is also very environmental friendly supply chain way. Next slide. So also with the packaging, we are supporting we are focusing to support much more the products which have like the less or smaller carbon footprint, which are, for example, cakes, water gallons, bagging box, and so on. The next slide. This was the carbon footprint. Now the water protection. What I can say, we are like in all countries, we are the mineral water producer, and water for us is like the main issue what we have for our business, and also our focus is really the protection our water sources, the protection the nature around the water sources. I mean, this is one of the biggest issue for us, to really keep this as healthy as we can and as clean as we can. Next slide, please. Second or third pillar, it's our ingredients and products. For example, ingredients and products. This is something where we are focusing on the natural products, local products, and really to have like the care of the main products for our production. If we can go to the next slide. Now we have like two ways where we have a focus. One is to have a product without preservatives, and the focus really to decrease the preservatives, to use the aseptic bottling line, to use the pascalization for the Ugo fresh juices, also for hot fill technology. Does it mean in the many production we have different lines where we are using producing the product without preservatives, and then on the next slide is also how to show how we are like focusing to decrease the sugar, because we are saying that sugar is not the problem, but amount of the sugar is a problem. Doesn't mean also in our product we are decreasing the amount of sugar. Also we are like focusing, and also our consumer we are focusing to use much more the smaller packaging as a half liter or can. Also doesn't mean also that they are like decreasing the amount of sugar which they are using. So then we can go for the next slide. Also, the healthy lifestyle is a very important in our business. In the whole sustainability, we are supporting the sport activities. For example, in Radenska, we are organizing the most important marathon in Slovenia. Also, we are supporting to using the herbs and for the healthy lifestyle of the people, and also the promote of the healthy lifestyle through our fresh bars. We have like today we have approximately 80 fresh bars around Czech and Slovak market, where we are preparing the fresh squeezed juice for the consumer. We can continue. Then is a waste management. I think waste management is for today. For the today meeting, it's a very important, and it's the theme of this day, and we feel as a very, very important in our business. And we have in the last couple of years we have introduced a lot of projects internally in our company, how to support, how to minimize the waste, or how to using the waste. For example, zero waste office in all of our offices in the company. For example, you can see the project in Delaros for tea, to not using the aluminum bar, and couple of type of this project, how to minimize, how to decrease the waste. Next slide, please. And what I can say that also with the packaging and with the waste, we have like the three ways of using the packaging. First, like the best is to have a products without packaging, without waste. As we have a product in the kegs, we are selling the products in the kegs. We are selling the water in the gallons, 18 liters. That's fair. Then we have a very big focus last couple of years, and also on the RGB bottle. Does it mean really RGB? It's something, for example, in Slovenia, which we are supporting, where we are growing. We feel that also the consumer are like hearing this and much more buying this type of product. And also the third part and big part is like to starting using the rPET. For example, in one water in Slovakia, now we are like finishing one product for the Slovenian market, and so on. I mean, also these are product without any packaging, like waste packaging, product in the RGB, and product with using the rPET. Next slide. 100%. We are part of the European Union. We are also focusing to support all requirements which are coming from the European Union about the collection, about the realizing, about the using the RPET. This is where we are really in and focusing on it and supporting. But of course, country by country are like the different ways how to do it. But this is very important for us. On my side, as a CEO of Radenska, but also as a president of the beverage association in the Slovenia, where we are like supporting this and cooperating with the ministry. Okay, we can continue. This was about the waste management, about the PT, about everything. But the big part of our company, because of a family-owned company, and our like in internal environment is a localism. Always our business is focusing to support the local society, people, and everything what we can do. It's like, for example, in Radenska, we had last 2 years, we have a very nice campaign where we are supporting triples, which are in the region 100%. It's what we were doing. We were supporting the people and the people in the first line during the COVID pandemic. Also the supporting the farmers with the plants, with everything. I mean, there is a lot of things what is like nature and for our business, how we are like working and cooperating with the local people, local environment around the company. Next slide, please. Our people, this is something about how the people are successful to work, are happy or to work in the company, how we are improving. We are, for example, in last year, we received the family-friendly company certificate in Slovenia, because really the focus on our employees, on our people, it's very, very strong. This is also one part of the sustainability of our business. Next. So now we are at the end of the whole picture, and I can repeat the 6 key areas on which we are focused and on which is focusing our business, which means carbon footprint, water protection, ingredients, waste management, localism, and people. And this is the whole picture. You can see how we are focused, how we are doing the business, and how we are managing our development. Because all the time, if we are preparing the new project, new technology, new product, we are like going around this, and we are like respecting these key pillars that we would like to have as much as possible in this product, in everything in. Doesn't mean we are respect. It's not like, for us it's not, and this is the future for us. For us it's not as a greenwashing, but for us it's something which we would like to have, like the nature and healthy and the nature for us, and for the people who are doing in the marketing, R&D, and everywhere in the company. So I think that's everything from my side. I am here for the question if you have something.
Thank you, Marian. Thank you very much. Sorry we had to switch to the next slide and so on. It does happen sometimes. Probably it is because on the speaker side it should be the Zoom client. Maybe for some reason you are through the browser, not the Zoom client. It could be that, but nevertheless we managed to go through pretty smoothly. Fine, good. So now we're in the ending stretch. We're in the questions and answer sessions. So yes, dear ladies, and also Martin, please do come back. Maybe Martin, you should turn off the virtual background because it doesn't look pretty good right now. So they will see you. And NA in the background, maybe you can put off the slides. So we don't have any questions typed in right now in the chat. So dear attendees, it's 109 of you right now. If you have any questions for them, just type it into the chat, or if you know how to do it, raise the hand. There's a toolbox where you see the attendees and the panelists. Just raise the hand, and then we will give you the word, and you can ask. In the meantime, maybe the four of you can, if you want to comment each other's presentations, views, or actually even give questions to each other if you want to. Maybe you can ask, Sarah and Maya and Hit and Radenska about their practices, because you have one view, they have the other view. And while we are waiting for the questions from the attendees, just what will happen after when we finish. So we have about 20-25 minutes of this. Maybe we're gonna even finish earlier. So there's the lunch break, and then we have 2 workshops. About 40 or so of you attendees applied for both of the workshops, about 20 on each one. We're gonna post the links even after we finish this one. So, and we have one question from Andrea. In
yes,
Slovene, yeah. Andrea, maybe you can pose it like directly. Unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I have a question for Sarah. If you can explain to us which of your measures or which of your decisions that you made in order to be single-use plastic-free or plastic-free was most successfully accepted by the public or by your customers? Which one did you see as most wanted?
Well, at the beginning, we didn't really, I think there were a lot of measures that we took that were really successful. But I remember that in the second store, in the Dastekaka, we tried to implement all the things that we learned from the first store. And one thing that we did in the first store, because we just wanted to reduce the plastic packaging, but we offered paper bags for free to the people. And the customers that came to the first store mainly were, I would say older single households. So people that really don't need a lot of grains or so. So they buy a few raisins and a few dates and a few nuts and put everything in their own bags because the price is not the same. And people didn't really think about this. I don't think that we noticed it at the beginning, but in the second store, we introduced a fee, or we sold the paper bags, and this had a huge impact on the behavior of the people. And it was really controversial because it was hard for us and for our employees to tell the people that we actually got a lot of money for the paper bags. I think they were 20 cents in the beginning, which is a lot for just the paper bag. But we did a lot of education on this, that it's okay, it's not plastic, but it's still a resource, and you can buy it once and then you reuse it again, because when you pay for it, then you put a certain value on it, on this product. And if it's for free, then you might not see it as a resource that it is. And I think this had the biggest impact, because suddenly people realized more people realized that also paper is a resource, and that we have to deal responsibly with it. So I think this is one of the biggest impacts I think that we had, I can remember.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 more questions, and I will allow those posing the questions to just ask directly. So Antonia, if you can speak. Tončka, she has a question for Martin from HIT, so you can ask directly.
Well, I would be really interested, because without the support of management, none of this would probably be possible. So how did you convince them, or how did you begin to start the project?
I would say for me, it was quite easier because the whole project started from the employees. And we noticed that this is much, much, much better than if it comes as an order from the president or from the board. Because if it is an order, we know that we are doing also our regular job. This is kind of like extra. We have to think, we have to prepare, we have to do. Of course, we came from the base that management said, let's try to keep the cost inside the existing cost. We knew that on daily basis it will be quite difficult, but we look for a year period. And just because of this project, we noticed that every month the people were using less and less plastic cups, paper cups. People start reusing the glass bottles. And because of that, all these actions and the small group of people who are really promoting this, it came to the kind of surprise that employees start adjusting the amount of usage. And because of that amount of money that we spend for the ordering the material. So I would say, for me, I did similar projects abroad, especially in the States, where we know that hotel chains are ordering these things. And it is sometimes, it has to be done. But I would say, try to convince employees, and they will find also a way how to reduce the costs, not only to change the plastic to alternatives.
Okay, thank you. Next question we have from somebody who we already have seen. So Anna, we invited you back on stage. So we turned on the video, so you're back on stage with us, with the rest of the speakers, and I believe you have a question for Marian.
Yes, I would like to congratulate Radenska for a fantastic presentation. It is a very good example of how the circular economy strategy should be implemented on many levels and in many elements of the company's activity. I would like to ask you about the recycled content. So we know that there are countries like in Sweden, where I am, 80% recycled content is possible today, not just 25% as we know from the Single-Use Plastic Directive. What is the consortium that you represent, the overall strategy with regards to the recycled content? How to achieve that, and what would you like to achieve, and when?
Thank you very much for the compliment, Anna. It's like the content. It will be dependent on the many things which will be on the market. Because first of all, now we have some products with 100% rPET using. Somewhere we will be not able to have so big amount of rPET because sometimes there are technical problems with the quality, and also third parties. For now, is also the price of the rPET, because we all now the rPET it's a much more expensive the standard PET. Doesn't mean also this is the question where we will come in the next couple of years, and also it will be all about amount of the rPET which we will be on the market. We will see this 25, which is like required by EU. This is like must, and we will be focused on it. Most probably, if it will be able, we will go much higher. But now we don't have some precise strategy where we would like to come. But it will be depend how the whole market will be developed with this. And also I know that still there is a lot of researches on the market how degradable will be the rPET, because this is the big question also for the future about the rPET, how it will be working when you will once and once more reuse the plastic. What will be happening with this? So I mean, this is also the question for the future.
Thank you.
Please.
Okay, if anybody else wants to add on to it, comment to it, feel free. We don't have any outstanding questions from the audience right now. So maybe, okay. What we're gonna ask is if maybe somebody will also ask a question from the audience. In between, we posted the link to the survey again on the chat. So when we will finish now or after the workshops, you click on this link in the survey and leave us the comments on what to change the next time we come back together. I hope we're going to be live, because we see each other through the screens, but we cannot talk over the coffee. Which brings me to another topic. So we discussed with Andrea before during the break. Some of the people, obviously, right now you hear me, provoking a little bit at the attendees. If there's any question, raise the hand and so on. But some people prefer to talk to the speakers, one-on-one. If there would be a break, lunch break, you would grab by the elbow and then have a one-on-one discussion. We actually have this opportunity also for you. What we're going to do is, after this main event, we have 2 workshops, and we're going to open one room. I'm going to put the link afterward. One room well before, so probably at about 1 o'clock or 1:10, something like that. So you come, attendees, to this room, and we will also invite all the speakers. So Marian, Sarah, Martin, Maya, Anna, maybe also others. And then we'll see if some people are there. We're going to put you in a small breakout rooms, is a thing in Zoom, and then you can be one-on-one or 3 maybe together, which is very natural, like it would happen on a big event, if you are not comfortable of saying a question live in front of 100 people and so on. So this is an option. So let's say at 1:10, the room which is intended for the workshop, which will happen at 2 o'clock, is going to be open. So I'm inviting all the speakers there if you have time, and all the attendees who want to catch the speakers one-on-one. We'll see what happens. It's not planned, so it's a room where you can get together and then you can have one-on-one discussions. So if that's okay with you, we're going to do that then. In the meantime, we did not get any questions. So Andrea, maybe you come back on stage here with me. Should we maybe do a wrap-up and then
yes,
yeah?
We can do that as well. If anybody from the panelists wants to have something to add or anything, I don't know, did we mention the platform for the plastic already?
Which platform?
The information for the chemical platform that is being organized by Chamber of Commerce.
The working group. Yeah. I mean, these are my closing words. So I just wanted to check with you if it's okay that we close about 10 minutes earlier. Okay, fine. I'm going to do the closing word. We're going to do that. So.
Okay. Other than that, I'm really happy with the event today. Thank you all the speakers. You were really, really wonderful. Thank you all to attendees, to your wonderful questions. And we are still inviting you to come to the workshops in the afternoon. And I'm sure that we are facing an interesting era with single-use plastic directive and the time that we're in right now. But we have to bite into it. So thank you all.
Sure. Let me conclude now. So we have come to the end of the event. It is evident that the society as a whole needs to step together. So both parts, the consumers, households, and the businesses, to mitigate the impact of the use of what we were talking about today. Yeah? The issue is global, so the solutions can be effective only through cooperation of all stakeholders. Having said that, to coordinate and accelerate these efforts, closing of polymer flows and other things that we mentioned, the Chambers Association of Chemical Industries of Slovenia has initiated a stakeholder working group of plastics within their plastics section. So this is what Andrea already mentioned. If you are interested in these initiatives, please contact today's organizer. So Andrea, her email will be posted in the chat now. So the Chambers Associations of the Chemical Industries is starting a working group on this topic. If you want to get more involved, Andrea is your contact. What we will also put now, besides the survey questionnaire, also the links to the workshops. You know that you are going to the workshop, obviously, because you had to register before for it. And as I said, one of the rooms, which is room number 1, we will post it, will be open already at 1 o'clock. So if there are interested attendees who want to speak one-on-one with some of the speakers today who will be there, we can also arrange that. Again, we would like to thank all the speakers for their informative and interesting contributions, as well as you, the attendees, for being with us, and of course, our sponsors, Tinkarna Celje and Enterprise Europe Network. Next year, we will have our 20th conference already, which we do sincerely plan to conduct live. So we'll see some of you at the workshops, and the rest of you, hopefully, next year. So this is the closure of the main event. Thank you very much, and see you at the workshops.